Donald Trump and Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg have been in a back and forth. This has been a sort of hate-filled affair between the two. Donald Trump sort of had the last word, although maybe Ruth Bader Ginsburg did today. Ruth Bader Ginsburg has been very open with her lack of trust and dislike for Donald Trump. She elaborated on her statement, saying that in addition to being a faker, here is a quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg, he has no consistency about him. He says whatever comes into his head at the moment. He really has an ego. How has he gotten away with not turning over his tax returns? The press seems to be very gentle with him on that. Most of us did know what she's talking about, right? The content of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's statements is not really a surprise. On some level, there were people who appreciated her deciding to call Trump out. On the other hand, especially after she said she can't imagine what the United States would be like with Donald Trump as president, some people reacted and said, you know, the Supreme Court justices are supposed to avoid political statements, political speech. They are supposed to avoid even the appearance of political impropriety or bias. And we've talked about Supreme Court justices appearing at Republican fundraisers, for example, and that is certainly over the line. But there is a case to be made, Lewis, that Ruth Bader Ginsburg commenting on an election is over the line, even if what she's saying is completely obvious, completely true and sensible, that the position is one that should not get involved in politics.
Maybe she's towing the line, I would say.
Yeah.
And it's not as if this is one of those cases where there's some ruling to be made. There's a conflict of interest.
But there could be.
Well,
if Trump becomes president, all of a sudden, one of the justices who has to decide about maybe his administration being sued over a law or something is the one who said, this guy's dangerous and he's a faker and blah, blah, blah. I get it. I don't disagree with the content of what she said.
Mm-hmm. But where do you draw the line? Because despite her position, shouldn't she still be able to voice her opinion as Ruth Bader Ginsburg, not the justice?
I know what you're saying,
yeah.
But when you're in a position for life that is appointed in this way, maybe there are special rules and you're not supposed to speak in this way publicly. Now, Trump had what some are calling an eloquent and thought-provoking and insightful response to her via Twitter. I'm not calling it that, but people on the internet who seem to like Trump are calling it that. Trump tweeting, Justice Ginsburg of the U.S. Supreme Court has embarrassed all by making very dumb political statements about me. Her mind is shot. Resign.
10,800 retweets and 31,896 likes.
Yeah. After it was revealed to Trump that Ruth Bader Ginsburg has been dealing with cancer for some time, he sort of backed up on some of the aggressive language. But actually, it's Ruth Bader Ginsburg who today said it was not appropriate. It was not appropriate what she did, and that her comments were ill-advised and that she regrets having made them. Of course, she doesn't think anything differently about Trump. We just now know what she thinks. She says making the comment was not a good thing to do. So I do believe that if we are going to be fair, I don't want to appear as though I'm against right-wing justices showing up at Republican events and fundraisers, but I don't care about Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg saying this. If the belief is all justices, because any topic could come before them at the court, should refrain from political speech, that should apply to everybody, including Ruth Bader Ginsburg, as much as I agree with her. And remember, typically, if you think of the State of the Union addresses, the Supreme Court justices and members of the military, generally speaking, don't react to what the president says. You'll remember Samuel Alito rolling his eyes, and the most sarcastic eye roll that they almost popped out of his head, knocking off his eyebrows. That certainly was completely inappropriate, Lewis, and we have to be consistent on this issue.
That is true. I guess it's there are a lot of unwritten rules here, and it's a lot of subjectivity, but even Ruth in this case said that she shouldn't have said it, and so we'll take her word for it.
I agree with her. I agree with her own assessment.
I guess I agree too.
Send me your thoughts on this. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/David Pakman Show.
Gamefly is sort of like Netflix for video games. They have over 8,000 new and classic games for Xbox One, Xbox 360, PS4, PS3, Wii, and a bunch of other platforms. And you can play as many games as you want for one monthly fee. And if you find some games you want to keep, You can buy them for a low used price. There's never any due dates or late fees, and our audience can get a free 30-day trial at gameflyoffer.com/TDPS. The games are shipped directly to you with return envelopes included. There's no contracts, and you can rent games through the mobile app. Get the free 30-day trial for the David Pakman Show audience and support our show by going to gameflyoffer.com/TDPS.